Hey friends, so to continue on my series of the worst Oscar snubs, I'm gonna look at one of my favorite categories, Best Original Song, and count down the top 10 best songs, songwriters, and pop stars that didn't get an Oscar nomination and probably should have, and also look at why they all missed out. Coming in at number 10, I'm gonna start off with an entire franchise, and that is the Hunger Games series. From Taylor Swift's beautiful Safe and Sound for the OG movie, we've got Coldplay's Atlas, Lorde with Yellow Flicker Beat. Even Sia did a song for the Hunger Games soundtrack. You might remember the hit song Elastic Heart. Well, that actually featured The Weeknd of all people on the original Hunger Games soundtrack. Literally every song that was made for the Hunger Games film series completely missed out on Oscar nominations, as did the entire series itself. I mean, it's blasphemy to me that the costume design and the production design and even maybe the makeup missed out completely on Oscar noms. I think because it is like a dystopian teen movie. It's just the kind of genre film that the Oscars love to ignore, and I think because of that they've missed out quite a lot. But with some of the biggest names attached to these soundtracks, it's kind of shocking that it hasn't come away with anything. But that all might change this year with the release of a new Hunger Games movie, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm excited to see what the soundtrack for that is going to be like, so fingers crossed, maybe this will be the first Hunger Games Oscar nomination that we will see. At number 9, Beyoncé. Yes, she is an Oscar nominee now. She got an Oscar nomination for Be Alive from the movie King Richard in 2021. But it's interesting to me that one of the biggest artists in the world, someone who is the most awarded artist at the Grammy Awards, and yet only seems to have been able to snag one Oscar nomination despite trying numerous times. Probably the most bizarre snub for Beyoncé actually came in 2006 for Dreamgirls. The song Listen was nominated in Best Original Song and was probably likely to be the big winner that year. I mean, it's the most successful song in that category. But the Academy rules actually state that only 2 songwriters can technically be nominated in Best Original Song. They do allow for 3 songwriters if they all equally contribute to a song, and they also allow for 4 under extreme circumstances. And they actually looked at the co-writing of Beyoncé's song Listen and ruled that Beyoncé didn't contribute as much as the other songwriters. But because of that, she was not allowed to be nominated for this song. The other 3 songwriters were all nominated, and yet she was left off. Alas, in the end, it didn't even win. There were 3 Dreamgirls songs nominated that year, and I think they all kind of like cancelled each other out. And we saw I Need to Wake Up from An Inconvenient Truth win instead. But the snubs continued for Beyoncé. Once in a Lifetime from Cadillac Records, she got a Grammy and a Golden Globe nomination and snubbed at the Oscars. Spirit from the Lion King remake, she got a Grammy and a Golden Globe nomination for Best Song, and yet nothing at the Oscars. They really didn't want to award her, but her long Oscars drought finally ended with the Be Alive nomination a couple of years ago. At number 8, the karaoke classic I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly from Space Jam in 1996. And let me just say that in retrospect, this is the smartest thing the Academy have ever done. And maybe they were already clued onto the fact that R. Kelly was a criminal. And thankfully, he has been put away now. But for this song specifically, it does shock me that it didn't get an Oscar nomination. For Space Jam, that was also a huge hit, to the point they did a sequel recently, which I haven't seen, but I've been told is one of the worst movies ever made. But in 1996, Space Jam was everywhere, and it's interesting this song completely missed out. Number 7, Come What May by Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor for Moulin Rouge in 2001. Oh, I love this song. I just love it. It's beautiful, it's epic, it is like everything you want a Best Original Song winner to be. It was nominated for Best Original Song at the Golden Globes, and yet the Academy Awards paid it dust. And the real reason is that it actually wasn't even eligible for the Oscars. Come What May was originally written for Baz Luhrmann's previous film, Romeo and Juliet, and that is such a shame because this song is iconic. And if it was eligible, I think it might have won. I mean, Moulin Rouge was a Best Picture nominee. Nicole Kidman was the biggest star in the world at that time. It really was the song that we all loved. At number 6, Reflection by the beautiful Lea Salonga, Mulan in 1998. I truly don't understand this snub. It breaks my heart even today. It's probably one of my favorite Disney songs. I was a Mulan obsessive when I was like 5, and so seeing this one not get in is so soul-crushing to me. Maybe by that point, Disney fatigue had set in. I mean, a lot of the best original song winners up to that point were Disney films. I mean, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, The Lion King, Pocahontas had all won Best Original Song for Disney movies. So I think by this point they were like, can we award like something else now? And Mulan just fell victim to that. I mean, at the same time, it was when Disney started falling out of favor a little bit with the general public. They stopped making their kind of classic Disney films, and while they were still great, they fell out of favor as Pixar started to take over as the premium animated studio. As for the snub of Reflection, it is really sad. The score did get a nomination though, so there is that. And as well, what's interesting about this one not getting in is that Christina Aguilera sang the pop version of this song. Reflection was her debut single, the first song she ever put out, and it was a minor hit for her. Because it was so successful, the earnings from her version of Reflection actually funded her debut album. It made the industry take her seriously, to the point that when she finally dropped Genie in a Bottle, it got her Grammy wins for Best New Artist. She was taken very seriously, and I think Reflection was the start of that. So it's just sad that this iconic song from the Disney catalog did miss out at the Oscars. At number 5, the global sensation Madonna. Yes, Madonna. With 6 Golden Globe nominations and 1 win for Best Original Song, and 3 Grammy nominations and 1 win for Best Movie Song, she has 0 Oscar nominations, which is honestly kind of cruel at this point, I feel like. She has the unlikely distinction of actually singing 2 Best Original Song Oscar winners, Sooner or Later from Dick Tracy in 1990 and You Must Love Me from Evita in 1996. I feel like her vocal performance definitely propelled those songs to the win, and yet her as a songwriter has been completely ignored by the Academy. And let me tell you, she's had a long list of songs eligible for Best Original Song. It goes all the way back to 1985. The Oscars have a history of completely snubbing Madonna no matter what song she writes. And I feel like her time has probably come. Barring a new renaissance of hers, which we may be seeing, she's recently done songs with Sam Smith and The Weeknd, and maybe now's the time that she'll get her first nomination. There was a lot of talk recently of the Madonna biopic movie happening, but it seems to have been shelved for now. I don't know why they're not making it, if it was her choice or not. But if that ever does come to fruition, I feel like she'll be writing a bunch of new songs for that film, and maybe that is where Madonna will get her first nomination. But until then, she's probably one of the most snubbed songwriters of all time at the Academy Awards. And I think for a global legend and a hugely successful songwriter like Madonna, she is deserving, and I feel like if I was to pick one, Beautiful Stranger would have been a great nomination for her way back in 2000. At number 4, probably the most snubbed songwriter of all time at the Oscars. In terms of wins, it's Diane Warren. Yes, she has been nominated 14 times for Best Original Song and has never won. Which for one of the most commercially successful songwriters of all time, it's kind of a real shame. I've done a whole video about Diane Warren's disappointing success at the Academy Awards, which you should definitely check out here. It's a bit shady because she keeps getting nominated for these like obscure songs that nobody's heard, from these obscure movies that nobody has watched. And every year she finds herself sliding in to the 5th slot in Best Original Song. And I wonder if something else is at play there. I mean, they just love her in the music branch, and that's really nice to see, but my God, I wish they would give her the win. And I think there's one song that she wasn't even nominated for that if she was, she could have been an Oscar winner now. And that is You Haven't Seen the Last of Me from the movie Burlesque in 2010. This was her best shot. It was the reunion with the legend Cher. They both collaborated in the 80s on hits like If I Could Turn Back Time and Just Like Jesse James. And this was them coming together to create a song after like 20 years. And it was a smash. I mean, this song is like right up the Academy's alley. It won the Golden Globe Award for Best Movie Song and yet didn't get a nomination at the Oscars. And for how much they love her, it's a crying shame. If they just awarded awarded her back then, they wouldn't feel the need to keep nominating her. And the sad thing is, that year was a pretty weak year. They only had 4 nominees, and Tangled and Toy Story 3 were the only ones with songs that I could see actually winning. But alas, I think because Burlesque was kind of critically panned at the time, I don't think that helped. And I think when a movie bombs like that with the critics, the Academy just don't take it seriously. And while it did moderately well at the box office and it's become somewhat of like a camp classic now, I think back then, 10 years ago, it just wasn't enough to propel Diane Warren into the conversation. And sadly, she missed out on probably her best shot at winning an Oscar. At number 3, Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio and LV in 1995 for the Michelle Pfeiffer hit movie Dangerous Minds. This song is so catchy, and I would have loved to have seen a hip-hop song get nominated way back then, but it technically wasn't actually eligible, sadly. It samples Pastime Paradise by Stevie Wonder, and because it uses a song from the past that wasn't technically written for this movie, it wasn't able to be nominated at the Oscars. Pretty much every part of a movie song has to be original and specifically written for the film in order to get in. So any song that kind of samples or does a little bit of a cover or an interpolation of another song is not really eligible for the Academy Awards in this category, which is sad because this song is epic. Like, it's just so damn good. At number 2, We Don't Talk About Bruno by Lin-Manuel Miranda from Disney's Encanto in 2021. And I think we all remember how this song blew up. And it's kind of crazy because this song is weird. Like, it's real weird. It doesn't really follow your kind of normal song structure, but it's so fun. And yet the Oscars completely snubbed it. And the reason for this is that the Oscar rules state that movies can only submit 2 songs for this original song category. And interestingly, Disney had to submit their choices before the film actually came out. So they kind of had to preempt which song they thought was going to be the most successful at the Oscars. And maybe they didn't really consider which songs might actually have a hold with the general public, because they ended up only submitting 1 song for contention in this category. Dos Oruguitas, the more ballady choice. I think it makes more sense when you look at which songs have won at the Oscars in the past. They definitely lean more towards the ballad genre, but they must be kicking themselves because as soon as they submitted that, We Don't Talk About Bruno blew up. It went number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and as a result, it missed out on getting an Oscar nomination when it was probably a shoo-in had Disney officially submitted it. And I think the category that year would have been a real fight. We had No Time to Die, the James Bond theme by Billie Eilish that year, and she ended up being the winner, which makes sense. But if Bruno was in there, I feel like it would have gone head to head. Like, it would have been a nail biter to see what would win. James Bond going up against Disney. I mean, it's like the movie song battle of the century. And I'm so disappointed that it didn't happen. If only Disney had known, or if they had waited, and we could have had Bruno in there. And now my number 1 worst snub in the best original song category goes to Lana Del Rey for Young and Beautiful back in 2013 for The Great Gatsby. Another Baz Luhrmann hit that missed out on an Oscar nomination. This song is haunting and beautiful, and the themes just fit so perfectly into that Great Gatsby world. Lana knocked this out of the park, and it's a shame that she missed out at the Oscars, and there's actually a lot of foul play involved as to why I think she didn't end up getting nominated. Towards the end of that year, a whole bunch of Academy members actually received an anonymous letter in the mail with a fake printout of a Variety article basically saying that this song wasn't eligible for the Oscars. They made up some bullcrap about how the release date of The Great Gatsby kept being moved around, and because of that, it wasn't actually eligible. And so a whole bunch of people might have actually fallen for that and not considered it in the category. Eventually, the Academy ruled it to be a fake, but the damage by that point was probably already done. And then, when the Academy Award nominees were announced that year, Young and Beautiful was left off. But there was one song on there that was real obscure. Alone Yet Not Alone, from the film of the same name, a Christian captivity narrative historical drama that literally made $887,000 from a $7 million budget. This movie was a total bomb, and yet it seemed to secure this very bizarre nomination for a songwriter that wasn't very well known to the general public. And it was revealed that the writer of the song, Bruce Bolton, actually broke campaigning rules to get his song nominated. He is actually a former governor and a current executive member of the music branch at the Academy Awards, and he used that power and that influence to personally contact a whole bunch of voters in the music branch to get his song nominated. And that is against the rules, especially because he is such an established person in that committee. They were like, oh, that's not a good look. And because of that, rescinded his nomination. So that year, we went down to 4 nominees for Best Original Song. And because he used his power and his connections to get himself a nomination, you wonder, what was originally gonna be the 5th song that should have been nominated in its place? Because if he didn't do that, he would probably be a lot further down the list, and maybe Lana Del Rey's Young and Beautiful could have actually been that 5th slot in the end. It's just so sad to think that because these people feel the need to use their influence to get ahead, we miss out on some of these great songwriters not getting like their first nominations for an Oscar. And yes, I'm going to admit there were other things at play that year. The Great Gatsby actually submitted 5 songs from that movie in the Best Original Song category. So because of there being so many songs up for the award, voters might have got a bit confused, or maybe they just thought there's too many of them to kind of pick one, or it split votes and just made it harder for Lana's song to stand out. It was also a very competitive year. I mean, that was the year of Let It Go by Frozen and Happy from Despicable Me 2 by Pharrell. There were also a lot of big names in contention. Coldplay, U2, Justin Timberlake, and Taylor Swift all had songs up for the possibility of getting a nomination that year. And at the time, Lana Del Rey wasn't necessarily as critically acclaimed as she is now. People were still kind of on the fence of like how legit she was, which is just offensive, to be honest. But I think all of those things together might have been at play to not push her higher up the list. But I do ponder and I do dream about the possibility that she was 5th, because Young and Beautiful is just so good, and it really is one of the most egregious snubs that the music branch have ever done in that category. But yeah, that is my list of the top 10 worst Oscar snubs in the Best Original Song category. Let me know, what do you think? Do you think I got it right? Or is there a song or an artist that you think should have been nominated but wasn't? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. I make videos every week on all things to do with entertainment, movies, music, TV shows, and award season. I just love it. So if you love it too, definitely hit subscribe and give it a thumbs up. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.